Assalamu alaikum, I'm Abid Khan and today I'm with Faisal Akbar. Faisal Akbar is expert in getting you job, how to get job, how to write resume, stuff like that. Thank you so much Faisal for coming. First question about your introduction. Tell them who
Sure,
are you?
absolutely. First off, Assalamu alaikum. My introduction is pretty basic. Been in various roles in large corporations, had tons of experience in not only just interviewing people, but getting interviewed as well. And then about 6.5 years ago, I started my own consulting firm. So basically, the easiest way I can put in terms of what I do is I help job seekers stand out and get job offers. So that's basically what my quick introduction is.
Okay, thank you so much, Faisal. We have two kind of people who, number one, who are almost unemployed. They don't have any job. The second one, they have job, but not the job which they want. First, we will talk about the people who are unemployed, right?
Yeah.
They get laid off. Sometimes the people, they come here to this country, newcomers, they don't even know how to make resume.
Sure.
They are highly qualified, but they don't know how to make resume and how to apply for jobs. They sometimes get job because of reference, stuff like that, but resume writing, stuff like that, you know a lot about this. Can you tell our...
Sure. So basically what I'll do is I'll walk you through in terms of how a resume should look like. And I'll share some stats with you because I'm very data driven. So stats are very important to me because I think stats play a big role in terms of how you get a job. At the end of the day, there's only two things you need to worry about when it comes to finding a job. Having a resume that converts into an interview, and then the second thing you need to focus on is having your interview skills that converts into a job offer.
Yeah.
So if you think about it from a bird's eye view, it's not difficult because those are the only two criteria that you have to look for. So coming back to what your question is, you want recruiters spend about 6 seconds to take a look at your resume. If you're applying through the corporate website, there's a system called ATS. It's an applicant tracking system. So your resume should have the keywords that are extracted from the job posting that you're applying for, match it as much as possible and making sure it's relevant, and then send your resume out. I'll share a stat with you. I was reading in an article the other day, and it said that 76% of recruiters and hiring managers will toss your resume if your email address is not professional, right? Which is such a little thing. So what I mean by that is my recommendation to everybody who has an email account is put a Gmail account on your resume, because Gmail account is associated with more of a professional way. Avoid using Yahoo because Yahoo is more associated with entertainment. Right? Hotmail, it's okay, but Gmail is what you want to put in. The way you would want to have an email address would be your first name, last name, right? So some of my clients, when they come to me and they have other emails, I'll tell them to create a specific email for the purpose of applying. Right? So the format that I ask them to use is first name dot last name at gmail.com. Now, I'll quickly go through how the resume should look like. The first section on the resume should be considered either a profile or a summary. A lot of people make mistakes by putting down an objective. Now, objective was useful 30, 40 years ago, and we all know objective is very generic. It goes something like, I'm looking to grow within the company, I want to work for the best organization. But that obviously doesn't really state what your value proposition is. So that's the reason why don't use objective anymore. Use either a profile or a summary. A profile or summary should contain minimum about 5 to 6 bulletin points. Right? The top portion of what your resume is where the hook is. So for recruiters looking at it, there's a statistic that says that 6 seconds is what a recruiter and a hiring manager spends reviewing a resume once it passes the ATS system. Right? So the top portion is where the hook is. Hook basically means it needs to capture the interest for the recruiter to continue reading. So that's why you need to have a profile or a summary heading with bulletin points in terms of what you've done.
Yes, your skills actually,
absolutely,
or your experience.
Absolutely. For example, I'll give you an example of a bulletin point that I can just throw out there. So let's say a credit analyst working at a bank or any other financial department. So a response would be something like, detail-oriented and analytical credit analyst with 5+ years of experience in reviewing applications and approving various type of credit limits.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a power statement right there as a first heading. So after you finish the summary or the profile, the next thing you want to put down is your work experience. Right? So your work experience should obviously have the name of the company, your position, the years that you have worked, and you should have at least 6 to 7 bulletin points in terms of what you have done over there.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times I will look at people's resume, and under one position they have listed about 15, 16, 17 bulletin points.
Oh.
Right?
It's too many.
It's too many, and the thing is, your resume, the goal is to capture the interest.
Yeah.
It shouldn't tell the whole story.
Yes.
Because the storytelling is done over the phone or the face-to-face interview.
Yeah.
Because verbalization has a lot more power than what written words are.
Yes.
So that would be the second one. After that, put down education, what you have done, whether it's college or university.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be the last bulletin point should be volunteer experience. So people who are volunteering.
Just a second, very important comment before we go further. We have a comment from Atya Jaswal. Every recruiter is different, but I don't read the cover letter. I get experience and skills. Oh yeah.
True. So
I think she's also a recruiter.
Yeah, so she raises a very good point, and that's why cover letters, unfortunately, have become obsolete, right? So I'll give you an example. So when you go to, let's say, a Bell or Rogers or any large corporation website, you'll notice that there's certain criteria that has an asterisk beside it. So what that basically means, it's mandatory for you to complete it. But once you come to the stage where you're attaching a resume, that's mandatory, but cover letter, it will always say it's optional.
Okay, so if it is optional,
then you don't need to attach it.
You don't need to attach. Okay.
You don't need to attach it. Now there are certain positions like government positions.
Yes.
They will mention in the actual job posting that the cover letter needs to be attached.
Okay.
So my recommendation is look at the job posting, and if the posting is saying attach a cover letter, then do it. If it's not, then don't do it. Okay. Because recruiters are focusing more on your resume than the actual cover letter.
Yeah, and you said it take them 6 seconds, right?
That's correct.
So in 6 seconds, you should put something on the top of the resume. Important, the most important things, right? He will just 6 seconds, like he will just read the few things and then he will just go ahead.
So one of the questions I constantly get is, how many pages should my resume be?
Very good question.
Should I be 1 page, 2 pages? At the end of the day, if you have experience, have at least a page and a half.
Page and
to 2 pages.
Okay.
I assisted a director of finance quite some time ago. He had a 4-page resume that I created for him. Because again, once the interest is captured, then the recruiter will spend the time to read all of it.
Okay.
Right? So the interest has to be there. If it's not, then they'll move on pretty quickly.
References should be mentioned in resume or no? No.
So you know how people will put down at the bottom references, available upon request? That's old. It's not used anymore because keep in mind, if they're going to hire you, they're going to ask for references anyway.
Okay.
Right? So it's redundant. So you don't need to mention that.
Okay. Rizwana Nahid, how much quality of resume count?
Well, there's a saying in social media, content is king.
Yeah.
Right? So the quality of how you position statements and how your experience is makes a huge difference. Now, I'm a strong believer in having bulletin points, not paragraphs. That's why I mentioned earlier, summary or a profile should be broken down into bulletin points rather than a summary, because psychologically, human beings can read bulletin points very quickly because eye attracts to it rather than reading a paragraph. It requires us to do a lot of work.
Well, is this important that you mention some people don't have Canadian education, right? When they make the education, they write education in their resume, it make a fact that education is from Pakistan, it's not from Canada.
Sure.
Like there is a job There are two people. One education is from Canada, another one is from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Both are skillful.
Sure.
Will this make any difference?
It doesn't. So what I have realized over the years, and this is even myself having a degree in psychology, that I used to go in interviews and none of those interviewers actually asked me about my degree.
Oh, degree, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the selling point is in your success and your experience, not your education. If you look at a job posting, you'll notice that education, bachelor's or master's, is listed at the very bottom. So that's a minimum criteria to be considered. It's not a deciding factor.
Okay.
It's a minimum criteria.
Minimum criteria.
Right?
Okay.
So meaning, in the banking world, if you have your mutual fund certification, just because you have it doesn't mean you're going to get a job, right? It's an added value that you have.
Oh yeah. Ayaz Ali Khan, is it okay to put past company logo in front of work experience on resume? I don't think. Yeah.
No.
It will look bad.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. You don't need to put a logo on it. Don't oversell. That's the key of the resume. Don't oversell. The purpose of the resume is to create interest, so they call you, and then you can verbalize your experience and sell them over the phone.
And which font and how much should be the font, big, the bold, and the stuff like that?
So Times News Roman. I think there's a Times New Roman. Arial. Yeah. Keep it professional. Font size for the bulletin points could be anywhere between 11 or 12.
11 and 12.
Yeah.
And you don't need a picture on
You
the
don't need a
resume.
picture. You don't need a picture. People tend to add different colors to it. You don't need to do that. Now, if it's a marketing role or a social media role that you're applying for, then creativity plays a big part.
Yeah.
Right? If it's but most of the roles that are white collar or any other type of roles, it's keep it simple.
Yeah. Very good. The resume part is, I think, very clear. Now, the next step is interview.
Sure.
You go for interview. What the interview think, the interviewer, about the candidate? When the candidate go there, how should he go? How should he talk?
Mm-hmm.
What should he not say? Mm-hmm. What should he say? Stuff like that.
Sure. So, I mean, we live in a world where we're all selling ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're selling constantly on a day-to-day basis. That's why I truly believe interviews, the ones who get an edge over other people, are just really good in selling themselves.
Okay.
Right. And I'm a strong believer in using psychology. For example, you have to understand, as much as you're being interviewed, you're evaluating the employer too.
Yes.
Just because they love you, you don't have to love them back if they're unprofessional or something like that. So some of the things that you should do, which is very important, is before the interview, prepare.
Okay.
You have to put in the time to prepare. So what that basically means is get on Google, find out what are some of the interview questions that will potentially be asked, write down the answers. Right? Write down the answers. Look at the answers. Making sure you're practicing it.
Okay.
Because once it's showtime and you go in front of the recruiter, your confidence in how you sell your background is what's going to give you the edge over other people. And don't forget, you're evaluating the employer as well. So whoever is interviewing you, you're going to evaluate them. Body language can show so much. So for example, if I'm sitting there and I give a response to, tell me about yourself is a common question that they will ask.
Yeah.
So what I'm observing is I'm looking at their body language and their eyes. So if I deliver the answer and they have a smile on their face, that gives me an indication that they like it.
Okay.
It's human nature. If I say something and you smile, you're giving me an indication that you're like what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing with the interview. So be very observant in terms of what their body language is saying, right? So the other thing that I want to talk about is don't go in the interview and not ask questions at the end. Okay. My suggestion is have at least minimum of 3 to 4 questions that you should ask at the end of the interview.
Okay. Many people say, "Oh, thank you so much."
No.
And you should ask. I will read one comment and then I will ask another question. Amir Khan is asking, can we have 3 pages of resume? We already answered that, but...
You can. If you position it right and your experience spans over 3 pages, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong. It will not have a bad impression.
It won't. It won't have it. Now, let me just backtrack for a second. Now, somebody could ask a question about what if I'm a new graduate? So if you're a new graduate, keep the same format as profile or a summary, but then after that, because you don't have any work experience, then have education. And then after that, mention whatever part-time jobs that you have done. So that's the difference between a professional versus a new graduate. The new graduate is trying to sell their education versus a professional who's selling more of their experience. That's why their education is listed at the bottom.
Now, in most interviews, you will get a question, what is your weakness? Right?
Yeah.
This is very hard question. Sometimes it can damage whatever you are doing, right?
Yeah.
It can take you out of the process, the recruiting process. So how can you answer that?
So the best way to answer that, and the reason why they're asking that question is to understand, are you truly self-aware and understand what your weakness is? Because there's no human being on this God-given earth that has no weakness, right? Everybody does. So they want you to acknowledge what your weakness is, but the way I position it, acknowledge what your weakness is, but then counter that in terms of what have you done to fix your weakness. So if you ask me what my weakness is, and I say, well, you know, I'm a workaholic, but then I'm very big on reading books on how to overcome that challenge, then what you're thinking as a recruiter is, okay, this person is able to self-analyze and they're able to fix things on their own. So as a manager, I will have to spend less time training him.
Yes.
You know, in those one-on-one meetings as an employee manager, I don't need to focus much because he's really good in detecting his own things. If you say that I don't have a weakness, then that could be construed as somebody who is not coachable. So if you're saying that I don't have any weakness, then to me as a recruiter who's thinking that, okay, he or she will give me resistance if there's any coaching that's done. And in a corporate environment or any sort of job, there's always coaching and one-on-one meetings that are done.
Okay. So in interviews, sometimes they say you should come in this dress. Sometimes they don't say what kind of dress you should have, right? So then what kind of dress you should wear? Like nothing mentioned about the dress.
It's not. So I'm a strong believer in the old philosophy of dress for success.
Dress for success.
Right, dress for success. You want to show them, you want to stand apart. Right? You want to start, so suit and tie. Suit and tie all the time. It's a deciding factor. So there was a comment that I was involved in with a couple of job seekers who said, you know, even when you start a job, what do you need to wear a suit and a tie if it's not a customer-facing role? So if you're not dealing with customers and you're working in back office, what do you need to wear a suit? I'm a strong believer in wearing the suit. Here's why. Because when you're wearing a suit for a back office position every single day, and let's say it's a department of 20, 30 people, and you're the only one who's wearing a suit every day, for a manager, you will stand out very quickly. Because think about it, everybody's wearing t-shirts and jeans, laid back environment, that there's one person who's wearing a suit every day. And managers in a corporate environment, they constantly talk to each other. So then they will start looking at you as somebody who's very serious about their career and who's very professional. I've done that. I've gotten a promotion because I've dressed apart every single day, where my peers were like, Faisal, why do you have to wear a suit? But I did it every day, and it played a big role in the perception of he's professional, this is how he carries himself. Right?
Oh yeah. So after the interview, you get hired, you are successful, you are in the company. What should you do in your job to retain your job? Like for example, the time comes, the company decide that we are going to remove this many people, and then the employer select. What is the important? Everybody work, but what is the difference?
I mean, it's really, you have no control over that. Because the company will decide when they want to downsize and who gets picked to let go. So I'm a strong believer. Control the things you can. The things you can't control, don't stress about it. Right? So actually, before I answer that question, I want to take a step back. So let's say you've had your final interview with the hiring manager. The most important thing you want to do is wait for 24 to 48 hours and send that hiring manager a thank you email. That's very important.
I forgot
So
that.
it just reiterates why you're the right person, and it's I call it the icing on the cake. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get a job offer because you sent a thank you email, but it it's one of the things. It's about professionalism. You want to make sure you are professional from the start all the way throughout the process.
Yeah.
Right. So that's very important. Coming back to your question, I'll give you an indication of how to aim for promotions.
Yeah.
So let's say typically most of the corporations have a 1-year commitment period. So you need to be in the role for a year before you can start looking for other positions within the company.
Yes.
Some companies might have 2 years. So what you want to do is, let's say I want to move. I want to move to another department. The marketing department, for example. So what I want to do in about 6, 7, 8 months of being in my current role is I'm going to involve my manager in helping me with setting up my career plan.
Yeah.
Because I want my manager to know what my long-term goal is, which is to move into marketing. So that's one thing you want to do, because you want to utilize your manager to get that support, because at the end of the day, remember, your manager is going to sign off on you getting promoted.
Yeah.
So that's one area. The second area is proactively reach out to the marketing department within the same company, speak to the manager over there, go there, meet with them, show interest that that's the department that you're looking at. If a future position is opened, build relationships with the marketing team. So put in all the effort beforehand. So when the position does open, think about it. How easy is it to get a promotion in that department where you have already built a relationship with the marketing manager and his or her team?
Yeah.
They already know you.
Yes.
So go there on your off, working hours. Go there on a day that they're there. Go meet them. Go take Timbits there.
Oh, yeah.
Share Timbits. The more they like you, and when the opportunity opens up, and that same manager you built a relationship is going to interview you, that won't be an interview. It's a formality.
Formality. That is a big difference. Okay. Now, which websites are good for applying jobs, right?
Sure.
The people are going for the job phase, they give their resume, they have same kind of resume, distributing it everywhere.
Yeah.
How can they look job online? Which websites? What should be used?
So Indeed is my main source when I help clients. LinkedIn. I cannot emphasize on this enough. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, please create one, because when you apply through Indeed or redirect it to the actual company website, again, it's going to go through an ATS, the applicant tracking system, which filters it down to the recruiter. However, having a LinkedIn account will actually connect you to the decision makers. So, for example, you could have the district, the VP or the president could be posting a position themselves and saying that please apply for it or reach out to me. So now they've opened up a line of communication to all the candidates who are interested in that position, because they're expecting you to send a message to them if you're qualified. So LinkedIn, absolutely get on it. And from a perspective of applying job boards, Indeed.
Okay.
There was somebody who posted a couple of days ago about she's looking for a job, and when somebody posts on the community, my only request would be just to help the community and myself is just ask what type of job you're looking for. So this way we can give you targeted advice in terms of whether it's customer service, whether it's insurance, project management. So somebody had mentioned about she's looking for a job.
Yes.
So I didn't know what type of job. So
any kind of job.
Yeah. So my feedback is, if she's looking for customer service part-time, then the advice that I gave her was the old-fashioned advice. Print 20, 30 resumes.
Yes.
Go to a shopping mall, because all the stores will have sign of hiring. And then just go there and speak to the store manager.
Yes.
Right? Now, the way you speak to the store manager needs to be very strategic, because as soon as you walk into the store and you say, I want to speak to the manager, the sales associate will think you're a customer who's about to complain. Right? So what you do is you have to be very strategic. Make sure your resume is not visible, because then they're going to think, oh, you want to drop your resume off. They're going to take it, but you don't know if they're going to hand it to the store manager or not. So keep it in a folder or a purse. If it's, if you're a female, just go there, and if they say, what's it about? Just say, you know what, I just want to speak to the manager. So when the manager comes, now you have an opportunity to showcase your personality. You give them your resume, say, I noticed that you're hiring. I was wondering if you have a couple of minutes to talk about my background in terms of how can I bring, like how can I bring my skills and be, impact basically the role itself.
Oh, yeah.
If they like you, the store manager, trust me, they will do the interview on the spot.
Yes. And I did this and I got the job this way in Hudson's Bay. I had like 30 resume and I went to the downtown mall and I got the job in a few days. Yeah, this is very good technique, and always there is a chance that you will go on time when they are hiring.
That's true. You gotta stand up. You gotta stand out. Where everybody is applying, and that's the beauty of retail is if retail already tells you exactly where the store is hiring, that nothing should stop you from going in.
Yes.
So you have to be proactive. Especially in this job market, which is so competitive.
Yes.
You got to be proactive.
Absolutely. Okay, now we come to Indeed. Some people, they are highly qualified. They come from Pakistan. Then they do odd jobs here or not the jobs which is their field, right? They spend few years in that job. Now, you are away from your field for many years. What will you write in Indeed?
That's challenging. So, I highly tell people when you come here. So one of the things that I constantly hear is, I can't get a job because I don't have Canadian experience. That's correct. That's false.
Yeah.
I've worked with people who had no Canadian experience, but they were able to get a job.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the way you conduct, let's say, the way you deal with, your project team in, let's say, in Pakistan or India is the same way you do it here.
Yeah.
Because it's all about collaboration. So if I'm looking at a project manager role, it's all about collaboration and dealing with stakeholders and stuff like that. So taking a detour and doing odd jobs is very tough, because then what you're doing is there's a big gap of you doing something else.
Yes.
So when you're applying for a job and a recruiter looks at it, they might say, okay, he or she has great experience, but why has he or she been working in an odd job?
Yeah.
So you lose credibility.
Oh, yeah.
You lose credibility. So, for example, one of the there was a comment that was made by somebody, if I can remember, said something about the person graduated from Ryerson University in Toronto in 2009.
Yeah. Her name is Wajiha. She commented.
Wajiha, and she said that degree in chemical engineering.
Yes.
Got married, been away from the workforce for about 5 years, and I think between that she was working odd jobs.
Yes.
I like to give very tailored advice, so I don't know the full context in terms of what type of odd job she's doing, so I'm going to take a shot in the dark. So let's say if she's working in a customer-facing job.
Yes.
The key thing she's extracting from that customer service job is communication, listening, problem solving.
Yeah.
So what she needs to do is she needs to look for an entry-level customer-facing or over-the-phone type of job in a company that has an engineering department.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
The reason I say that is you have to understand, career is a journey, it's not a destination.
Yeah.
Right? It's a long road.
Long.
So for somebody like her who's been away from the field for 5-6 years, you have no leverage because you've been away from the field for such a long time.
Yes.
And anybody that's competing with you who's been in the field will always have more advantage than her.
Yeah.
So she needs to get into, utilize whatever odd job she's doing, and then target companies where she can get into an entry-level position. Once she gets in, then from there she can network and move into the engineering department.
Oh, yeah.
Get a foot in the door,
Absolutely.
and then from there, sky's the limit.
You want to say that you just go in to your field, whatever position, and then you will get your required job.
That's correct.
The other question, there are so many recruiting companies all over Canada and every big cities. How much they can make a difference when you apply directly or you apply through them?
Sure. So you have to be very selective.
Okay.
Which recruiting agency? And we were at the job search session last time, and there were a few individuals who were able to find those quality recruiters that were able to help them. So it's all about finding quality recruiters.
Oh yeah.
Right. Building relationship with them, being persistent. Right. That's the key. I mean, there are recruiters out there that will help you, but they're very far and few. Again, these are agency recruiter.
Yeah.
Right. But they're out there, so they are there to help you. And they're basically the matchmaker between the job seeker and the employer.
Yeah.
So if you're able to sell them, they will take that information and sell you to the actual employer.
Why these companies are not hiring directly? Why they need to ask somebody else to hire?
Budgets. So some of the companies don't have a dedicated HR department,
Okay.
right? So number of reasons. So one is budget, so they rather outsource it. Number two is they might have an HR department, but they just don't want to, they don't want to spend the time in hiring. They'd rather source it out to outsource it to a recruiting agency so they can do the work.
Oh yeah. So all my questions are finished. The interview already got so long. So what are the common question, or what you want to say at the end of this interview?
Be persistent. Please don't take a detour from your career. And the number one, ignore when people say that there's no jobs here, or ignore when people say that you need Canadian experience. You don't.
Oh yeah. Or you need a reference.
Yeah, and then people say that. My simple response to them is when somebody tells you their story about why they're struggling, that's their story, not yours.
Yes.
You create your own story, right? So just because what they have said something doesn't mean that's going to apply to you.
Yeah.
Right? So stay persistent, utilize some of these strategies. LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. You'll get an idea in terms of how the job market is. And stay positive. Just surround yourself with positive people.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Faisal. And all of you who are watching us, if you have any specific question about your job search, job problems, anything, you can send message to Faisal. I already tagged him. He will reply you, okay? And he's very helpful guy. Thank you so much, Faisal.
Thank you so much to everybody. I want to thank this gentleman who sent me a message, and I love his work ethic. I admire it. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.